It's Mike's Old Religion Dystopia, Known versus Belief. A world full of lies. Anyways, as you can see, my hair is growing pretty long. It's been about, well, a year. Last summer I had a bit of a trim, but I am going to get my hair cut on Thursday. It has now been over a year since I buried my mom, after she had a blood clot in her brain and a stroke and died. And you can imagine where that came from. And I told myself for a year I was not going to get a haircut in remembrance of what happened to her the last year of her life when she was in the nursing home. That year in which I was not allowed to go into that nursing home turns out to be, well, if you want to know the truth about things, I guess you need to go over to BitChute. You need to go over and find people who are free enough to tell the truth of what happened in 2020, 2021, and now 2022. There's apparently tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people. You're not allowed to seek the truth about anything in this Orwellian world that we live in. So I'm recording this in remembrance of what happened to my mom, and what also happened to my little brother, and what happened to dozens of other people that I know, or knew, that are no longer with us. There seems to be a war. That war is against you and I. I hope that you enjoy the series that I just uploaded. Montgomery's Emails by Gordon Comstock, that was done 10 years ago, a decade ago. If you listen to that, you will gain great insight in how the world really works, the connection with the Vatican, the Exchequer, the British Crown, the U.S. or the Washington D.C., the District of Columbia, and the Roman Empire that still exists and that you and I are part of. There's a lot of things to be said, but since every time I say something that speaks truth, for some reason I get censored. Now I hear other people still on YouTube talking about this stuff that I was warning people about 2 years ago. For some reason I'm marked. Yeah, I never had a great following. Even when YouTube, at the most, I had just under 4,000 subs, and they still went after me and my channel, and that's because I'm telling you some truth. So go over to BitChute if you want to hear and see more of truth. In the meantime, we'll get into reading the Word of God again. Sorry about the lighting, but I don't really give a crap. I'm ugly, and that's just the way it is. Now, we read, at least I did, and the one or two of you that may hear this, that's because you're really interested in the truth, and the rest of you are just interested in being entertained. In which case, there's not much I can do about that. And so all you can do is make your own decision on things. So let's get into this. We don't have to look at my ugly face anymore. Okay, so yeah, we finished on chapter 8 of Mark, or I did. And chapter 8 is very much parallels, or just goes along with chapter 16 of Matthew. So compare the two, and you'll see clearly what Jesus was saying. Now, Jesus told his disciples what was going to happen to him. And we'll start from verse 29 of chapter 8. And he said, saith, that means Jesus, unto them, but whom say ye that I am? And Peter answereth and saith, Thou art the Christ. And he charged them that they should tell no man of him. And he began to teach them that the Son of Man must suffer many things, and be rejected of the elders, and of the chief priests, and of scribes, and be killed, and after 3 days rise again. He spake that saying openly. And Peter took him, and began to rebuke him. And when he had turned about and looked on his disciples, he rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan, for thou savourest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. And why not? Why don't we go to Matthew 16, and let's look what Matthew's account is, allegedly Matthew's account. Okay, here we go. When Jesus came, this is now verse 13 of chapter 16 of Matthew, and Jesus came to the coast of Caesarea Philippi, and he asked the disciples, saying, which is interesting, Caesarea Philippi, Caesar, is what I think of. Whom do men say that I, the Son of Man, am? And they said, some say that thou art John the Baptist, some say Elias, and others say Jeremiah, and others, or one of the prophets. And he saith unto them, But whom say ye that I am? And Simon Peter answered and said, Thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. And Jesus answered him and said, Blessed art thou, Simon Bar-Jonah, for flesh and blood hath not revealed it unto thee, but my Father which is in heaven. And I say also unto thee, that thou art Peter, and upon this rock will I build my church. So it is the rock that he's going to build his church on is the fact that he is Peter, and the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. What is the rock? The rock is the fact that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of the living God. The foundation of Christianity is not that Peter is the rock, but Jesus is. And it says that the gates of hell shall not prevail against it. And as we read further on in the New Testament, it was conquered. The gates of hell were conquered. Hell itself. And he says this, I will give unto thee the kingdoms of the keys of the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatsoever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. Now, in no way does Jesus say that Peter can pass the same ability or blessings or spiritual power or gifts to somebody else. He says clearly that he gave it unto Peter because of his understanding and his faith that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God. And therefore, he says he's going to give him the keys to the kingdom of heaven. And whatsoever thou, Peter that is, shall bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever thou shalt loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. Then charged he his disciples that they should tell no man that he is, or that he was Jesus the Christ. From that time forth began Jesus to show unto his disciples how that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things of the elders and the chief priests and the scribes, and be killed and be raised again on the third day. Then Peter took him and began to rebuke him, saying, Be it far from thee, Lord, this shall not be unto thee. Now this is, and right after Jesus gives him the powers, or the keys to the kingdom of heaven, thou shalt bind on earth, whatsoever thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, whatsoever thou loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. So and what does immediately happen to Peter the man? This is what Jesus says to him. But he turned and said unto Peter, Get thee behind me, Satan. So he goes from giving the keys of heaven to bind once again, to the bind on earth. What thou shalt bind on earth shall be bound in heaven. What thou shalt loose on earth shall be loose in heaven. And then he calls him Satan. Thou art offensive to me, for thou savorest the things that be of, savorest not the things that be of God, but those that be of men. Then said Jesus unto his disciples, If any man will come after me, and let him deny himself and take up his cross. If any man will come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever shall save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake shall find it. What does this mean? The loss of life. It's not just one's own will, but many of them, as we will find in a little bit here, will die because they follow Jesus. Physically die. It seems by the hands of these elders, these chief priests, these scribes, these Sadducees, these Pharisees. For what is a man profit if he gain the whole world, like the Pharisees and the Sadducees and scribes of his day, and lose his own soul? And what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? For the Son of Man shall come in the glory of his Father with his angels. Then he shall reward every man according to his works. Who are the men? His disciples, his apostles. Verily I say unto you, there be some standing here, his disciples, his apostles, which he is speaking to directly, which shall not taste death, till they see the Son of Man coming in his kingdom. So it's kind of hard to argue that point. Now, so we know that there's some that are not going to die. They're not going to taste death when they see him coming. And his kingdom. And how does he describe it? In the glory of his Father with his angels, and he shall reward every man according to his works. Now we go back to Mark, because it's basically saying the same thing, is it not? So And he spake at that, saying openly, and Peter took him and began to rebuke him. But when he turned about and looked at his disciples, rebuked Peter, saying, Get thee behind me, Satan. He's calling Peter Satan, or that which is inside him Satan. For thou savorest not the things that be of God, but the things that be of men. Seems like the disciple of Satan, or some that follow Satan, or is influenced by Satan, are those that follow the things of men, and not the things that be of God. And when he called the people unto him, with his disciples also, he said unto them, Whosoever will come after me, let him deny himself, and take up his cross, and follow me. For whosoever will save his life shall lose it, and whosoever shall lose his life for my sake and the gospel's, the same shall save it. For what shall it profit a man if he shall gain the whole world but lose his own soul? And what shall a man give in exchange for his soul? So he's telling his disciples what they must do. They must follow him for his sake and for the gospel's. And if they follow after the ways of men of this world, then they are now once again bound under the influence and are the children of Satan instead of Christ. So either you follow Christ and his gospels, or you don't, and you believe in what he says, or you don't. If you don't believe in what he says and what he did, then according to Jesus, you are a child, an element, you are a creature of the synagogue of Satan, or who's the devil. And we see today, as we always have seen, those who say contrary to what Jesus says, they will gain the things of this world, but they will lose their soul. And what all that means entails. He says here, What shall a man give in exchange for his soul? Whosoever therefore shall be ashamed of me and my words. So whoever should be ashamed of Jesus and his words in this adulterous and sinful generation, the generation that he's, the same time when he's walking on the earth, the people he's talking to and he's dealing with in Jerusalem and areas round about, he's calling them adulterous and sinful generation. He says, whoever should be ashamed of him and his words, of him also shall the Son of Man be ashamed, when he cometh in the glory of his Father with his angels. Just like in Matthew 16, he cometh with the glory of his Father and his angels. And he said unto them, Verily I say unto you, that there be some of them that stand here, stand where? In front of him, when he's speaking, which shall not taste death, till they have seen the kingdom of God come with power. Once again, watch this when he comes back. It is the great parousia, the second coming. Pretty simple. Yet, it's very most Christians and most people can't tolerate it. And there's the gift. There's a great price. What Jesus talks about, what he said, and what he would do. When you hear anybody else in our day, or any time since that generation, who say that Jesus is coming, that his second coming is coming, they obviously are ashamed of him and his words. Now, you know you don't like to hear that. Who wants to hear that? But that's what Jesus said. Then it said, After 6 days Jesus taketh with him Peter, James, and John, and leadeth them up into the high mountain apart by themselves, and he was transfigured and before them. Now, some people say that this is the previous verses are about his transfiguration. But if that's the case, then some of the disciples, the 12 apostles, should be dead by now, if that's the case. But that is not the case, because he was talking previously about his second coming. What would happen at the end of their generation, just as Matthew 24 talks about, just as Matthew 23 talks about. But we've been brainwashed and deceived by those people who are supposed to be the purveyors and the holders of the truth, and to share it with you and I. But for some reason, they don't want that. I think that's because if you realize that Jesus already showed up, you might have not a less of faith in Jesus, but a less of faith in them, the priestcraft of our day. Whether it's the patriarchs, the popes, the archbishops, the bishops, the ministers, the pastors, etc., who have been telling us over and over again that Jesus is coming in the future, when Jesus said it was going to happen in his generation. So either it did happen or it didn't. If it didn't happen, he's a liar, and he's not who this book, he's not what he and the apostles claimed him to be. And that's a simple fact. Now for me, if Jesus said it happened, it happened. People say, well, where's all the historical facts? Well, we should know, and you should, if your eyes have been open and you've been aware of what's been going on, at least the past 2 years, that you should recognize that history is rewritten over and over again. And lies upon lies and misinformation and disinformation is part of the oligarchs, the ruling class, the plutocracy's strategy of managing and herding and calling the herd, us. And therefore, you have to make a decision for yourself, based on faith and belief, whether or not what he said is true or not. Now you're going to have to, you will run to pastors and priests and bishops and popes and patriarchs, and they won't tell you the truth, just as their predecessors didn't tell the truth. The predecessors? I guess that's no. They're what am I trying to say? The priestcraft before them, from the generation before, and the generation before that, and the generation before that. And so that's the way it is. And that's the way we have to come to terms with things. This, for me, has been a heartbreaking, shattering realization, because it really does verify everything. Let God be true and every man a liar. It really is the case. That means everyone. That includes me. That includes you. That includes everybody that you idolized. So anyways, he's transfigured 6 days later. Clearly, there were still all the apostles still around. So what he was talking about earlier has nothing to do with the transfiguration. You have to be very dishonest to take it there. And his raiment became shining, exceeding with white as snow, so as no fowler on earth can white them. I have no idea what that means. So his raiment became shining, exceeding and white as snow, so as no fowler on earth can white them. Okay? So what the whiteness and the shining of this whiteness was such that it was a whiteness that no man on earth could possibly do, obtain, create, whatever. And there appeared unto them Elias with Moses. And they were talking with Jesus. And Peter answered and said unto Jesus, Master, it's good for us to be here. Let us make 3 tabernacles, one for thee, one for Moses, and one for Elias. For he was not what to say, for they were so afraid, and rightfully so. And there was a cloud that overshadowed them. And a voice came out of the cloud saying, This is my beloved Son, hear him. And suddenly when they had looked round about, they saw no man any more, save Jesus only with themselves. And it's my personal experience from dealing with the spiritual realm that it's fast. It's not long. Although I did have a 3-day spiritual warfare going on, I didn't see those entities only but for short moments of time, or sensed them, or saw them manifest in different forms. But I didn't see that on a continual basis for 3 days. It was like they were here in one moment and they were gone. And whatever happened, whatever I experienced, it burned a memory in my brain that I can never forget. Maybe that's all it takes for us, is these short moments, a few seconds. Yet it's enough for most men not to ever forget. Yet the many other things that one experience in their lives, they don't have that magnitude of an impression upon you. And as they came down from the mountain, he charged them that they should tell no man what things they had seen till the Son of Man were risen from the dead. Probably because they would have got killed. And they kept that saying with themselves, questioning one with another what the rising from the dead should mean. And they asked him, saying, Why say the scribes of Elias that Elias must come first? Why say the scribes that Elias must come first? And he answered and told them, Elias verily cometh first, restoreth all things, how it is written of the Son of Man, that he must suffer many things, and be sent at naught. But I say unto you, Elias is indeed come, and they have done unto him whatsoever they list, as it is written of him. And when he came to his disciples, he saw a great multitude, and about them, and the scribes questioning with them. Now, if we go back to Matthew, we know who Elias is, and I've heard people say otherwise, but either this book is right, or it's not. And apparently some people think they're smarter than even what's in this book. And here's what you say. Jesus answered and said to them, Elias truly shall first come and restore all things. What I say unto you, that Elias is come already, and they knew him not, but have done unto him whatsoever they list. Likewise shall also the Son of Man suffer of them. Then the disciples understood that he spake unto them of John the Baptist. So we know who that is. It's John the Baptist. So they saw John the Baptist, Moses, along with the Messiah. And obviously, me being dim-witted and a dullard, if I can figure that out, you can figure that out too. And when he came to the disciples, he saw a great multitude about him, and the scribes questioning with them. And straightway all the people, when they beheld him, were greatly amazed, and running to him saluted him. So why is it that they were greatly amazed? Something had changed about him when he was transfigured. And, and the multitude were amazed and were influenced by it and noticed something, right? And he asked the scribes, "What question ye of them?" And one of the multitude answered and said, "Master, I have brought unto thee my son, which hath a dumb spirit." So now we know they're dumb spirit. We know that they're spirits, but well, there's unclean spirits, devils, devil, Satan. What was it? There's other ones too. That's just dumb spirit. I guess that's what I'm dealing with, a dumb spirit inside me, huh? And then there's well, there's legions, etc. Okay. Anyways, and wheresoever he taketh him, he heareth them. Wheresoever he taketh him, he teareth him, and he foameth and gnashes with his teeth, and pineth away. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. Now, what is pineth? Is he talking about masturbating away? Why couldn't it be? And he answered, say to them, "O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer with you? Bring him unto me." Now we can look it up and see what that means, because we know that it's moved to today, and our day is something to do with masturbating. But we know that they change things over and over and over and over again. Since you become thin and weak because of sadness and loss. Now, of course, we're not using other, like Stroms or whatever, but I guess we could. So, it says here that he becomes weak and saddened. And it's a good point that I bring up pineth away, because pineth away. Where is it? So to languish with desire, to waste away with longing for something, usually followed by for knowing that she pined for your return. So there you go. It's become thin and weak because of sadness and loss. Since his wife left him, he spent his days alone, pining away. Now, I brought up the masturbating thing because it is used today for that reason, right? Which, once again, what happens over and over again? The changing of language, the meaning of words. And I spake to thy disciples that they should cast him out, and they could not. And he answers and saith, O faithless generation, how long shall I be with you? How long shall I suffer you? Bring him unto me. And they brought him unto him, and when he saw him, straightway the spirit teared him, and he fell on the ground and wild foaming. And he asked his father, How long is it ago since this came unto him? And he said, Of a child. And oftentimes it has cast him into the fire and into waters and destroyed him. But if thou canst do anything, have compassion on us and help us. And Jesus said unto him, If thou canst believe, all things are possible to him that believeth. And straightway the father of the child cried out and said with tears, Lord, I believe, help thou mine unbelief. And when Jesus, help me too, Lord Jesus. And when Jesus saw that the people came running together, he rebuked the foul spirit, saying unto him, Thou dumb and deaf spirit, so I mean there's dumb and deaf spirits, I charge thee, come out of thee, and enter no more into him. And the spirit cried and rent him sore, and came out of him, and he was as one dead, insomuch that many said, He is dead. But Jesus took him by the hand, and lifted him up, and he rose. And when he was come into the house, his disciples asked him privately, Why could not we cast him out? And he said unto them, This kind can come forth by nothing but by prayer and fasting. And they departed thence, and passed through Galilee, and he would not that any man should know it. For he taught his disciples, and said unto them, The Son of Man is delivered into the hands of men, and they shall kill him, and after that he is killed, he shall rise on the third day. But they understood not that saying, and were afraid to ask him. And he came to Capernaum, and being in the house, he asked them, What was it that ye disputed among yourselves by the way? But they held their peace, for by the way they had disputed among themselves who should be the greatest. He sat down and called the 12 and said unto them, If any man desire to be first, the same shall be last of all, and servant of all. You hear that, Popey? You hear that, Jesuits? You need to start behaving like that. So far, you're doing the complete opposite of everything. And he took a child and set him in the midst of them. And when he had taken him in his arms, he said unto them, Whosoever shall receive one of such children in my name receiveth me. And whoever shall receive me receiveth not me, but him that sent me. And John answered him, saying, Master, we saw one casting out devils in thy name, and he followeth not us. And we forbade him, because he followed not us. But Jesus answered, Forbid him not, for there is no man which shall do a miracle in my name that can lightly speak evil of me. For he that is not against us is on our part. For whosoever shall give you a cup of water to drink in my name, because ye belong to Christ, verily I say unto you, he shall not lose his reward. And whosoever shall offend one of these little ones that believe in me, it is better for him that a millstone shall hang about his neck, and he were cast into the sea. If thy hand offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter into life maimed, that having two hands to go into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched, like the sun with a U. Where their worms dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Thy foot, and if thy foot offend thee, cut it off. It is better for thee to enter halt into life, than having 2 feet to be cast into hell, into the fire that never shall be quenched. So is that supposed to be hell or Sheol? Where their worms dieth not, and the fire is not quenched. Well, one thing, worms in a fire here on earth, they would die in a fire, wouldn't they? So what does it exactly mean fire? And if thy eye offend thee, pluck it out. It is better for thee to enter into the kingdom of God with with one eye, than having 2 eyes to be cast into hell fire, where their worm dieth not, where their worm singular, where their worm dieth not, that's the second time. Third time, their worm singular. What is their worm? Is it a literal worm? What kind of worm are we talking about here? That can, stay in the fire of hell. Fire is not quenched. So where their worm dieth not, the fire is not quenched. For everyone shall be salted with fire, and every sacrifice shall be salted with salt. Salt is good, but if the salt have lost its saltiness, wherewith will ye season it? And have salt in you, and have peace one with another. What is this worm? This worm, singular.